This is Rich Lyga, and you're listening to The Sound on 89.5 KQAL in Winona.
Welcome to The Sound, KQAL FM's weekly behind-the-scenes look at Midwestern-made music. From writing and recording to distribution and promotion, The Sound is your source for new releases and exclusive interviews from Midwestern artists. Support for The Sound is made possible by a grant from the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund. Rolling.
Tonight on The Sound, we dive into a home-brewed instrumental album by Rich Lyga of Hallowed Ground. Rich has been part of the Winona area music scene for over 30 years and is most known in the area for fronting local metal band Hallowed Ground. Rich's third and latest album, titled Speechless, is a collection of instrumental tracks that show off his songwriting and his prowess on the guitar. Rich joined KQAL's Bill Stoneberg in the studio to talk about the making of the new album, his thoughts on writing instrumental music versus music with vocals, and plans for Hallowed Ground to start playing live again. I'm Briley Harris, and now here's KQAL's Bill Stoneberg with Rich Lyga tonight on The Sound.
That was Conquering Mountains from the album Speechless. That's the latest solo effort from Hallowed Ground singer-guitarist Rich Lyga. And joining us in the studio tonight is Rich Lyga.
Yeah.
How are you doing tonight?
Good. Glad I could come down.
Yeah, for sure. You know, like we were talking a little bit before we started, we've known each other for a long time. God, I don't even know. It's got to be, 30 years at least?
Something like that. Yeah, it started junior high. I was in junior high. Yeah. I think you were just freshman in high school.
So, yeah, it's been a while. I don't even want to add that up. But, so the new record, it's instrumental. Your last two have been, do you play all the instruments on it too? How's that go down? Like, are there other people on it? Or
I layer all the tracks myself. And I mean, the inspiration comes from all over. And over the years, I've learned to play bass out of necessity.
Right.
Learned to, I can play basic drums, but to be honest, majority of the drums, the basic stuff is programmed.
Okay.
And then I'll throw some fills in and some live cymbals and mix it all up to give it a realistic sound, you know.
Nice. So you do all that yourself? You play the cymbals and stuff like that?
Yeah, I track everything out in my own studio, and I own my own studio in my basement.
Nice. Oh, so that's why we're hearing so much music from you.
Yeah, it's I've actually had it for years, but it's just, you know, with everything going on in the past year or so, I've released 2 albums over the last year.
Right.
So it's just kind of added to keeping me busy, you know.
Yeah, definitely. So the band Hallowed Ground, you guys record in that studio as well?
We did. We released our album originally back in 2011.
Right.
So we've been together for quite a few years. We recorded and released an album back in 2011. Actually ended up becoming more of a cover band.
Right.
So that's kind of my outlet for getting the covers out. And then for my original stuff, I've kind of gone more on my own.
Okay. So that's the solo stuff then.
Yeah.
So how do you, you know, like I mentioned, the last two, you know, this one, Speechless and Without a Word, both instrumental albums. Like, how do you decide, because your first solo record, Becoming, that was, had vocals and stuff on it. So how do you decide, like, you know, if you're going to add vocals to it or, you know, do a whole instrumental album or one with vocals? Or does it just kind of happen that way?
It's however it happens. I'm obviously, or honestly, a little more comfortable doing instrumental stuff.
Okay.
Years ago, way back in like the early 90s, I had this instrumental album that I recorded, and really it was unnamed. It was unreleased. I did it on a 4-track, a little old Fostex,
Right.
and just recorded a couple of rhythm guitar parts and some lead guitar parts, and it turned out quite well, and I ended up selling a couple hundred copies just that I made myself.
Nice.
Just sold them to friends and family and whoever. Well, that unnamed album actually came back to haunt me. Without a Word is a reproduction. I relearned every one of those songs.
Oh, really?
Re-recorded them with the new studio. So Without a Word, back in 2020, I released that.
Right.
And that really became the new version of that original unreleased album.
Oh, cool.
And I had a lot of fun doing it. So I'm like, well, okay, let's, I had a few more things kind of hanging out in my studio, and I just pieced them together and got a little inspiration from some things that I do. Like you said, this last song that we just listened to was Conquering Mountains.
Yeah.
To me, the feel of that song, I took up mountain biking this last year, right?
Right.
And to me, the feel of that song reminds me of just flowing on what they call a flowy trail. It's just that energy.
Yeah.
You come around that corner, people out there can't see what I'm doing with my hands, but you're,
Right.
you're flowing up and down these hills and around these corners, and it just gives me that feeling. So
Right.
that's where Conquering Mountains came from.
Cool. I want to talk a little bit about that more, the feeling you get through instrumental music and stuff like that. But before we do that, let's get back to some tunes. We'll play another track off the album. This one's called Pieces of Me. Is there any kind of story behind this one or anything like that? Or
Literally pieces.
Oh, yeah?
I said I had some tracks that were just hanging out in my studio, and this was like a bunch of little bits and pieces that really didn't fit into other songs.
Cool.
And I kind of pulled them together and put them into a track.
Oh, nice. All right. Well, we're here talking to Rich Lyga tonight, and his new album is called Speechless. You can get it on all your streaming services and stuff like that. This next track, it's called Pieces of Me, right here on The Sound on 89.5 KQAL. That was Pieces of Me. That's from Speechless. That's the latest album from Rich Lyga. And we have him in the studio with us tonight. Rich, so we talked a little bit about, you record in the studio by yourself, doing all the instruments and stuff. And then we talked a little bit about that, like the feeling behind that. The first track we played was the first track of the album, Conquering Mountains, and we talked about the feeling, that you have,
Right.
mountain biking and stuff like that. So when you're writing instrumental music, does it still have like a specific theme in mind, or is it kind of more broad than that?
Not always.
Okay.
I would say a majority of the songs, I start with a feeling.
Okay.
I build on that, and then I try to figure out what that feeling reminds me of. There are other times where I get a subject matter in mind,
Right.
and how does this make me feel, and then I write to it. So I kind of work both ways, you know.
Okay. Cool. So Conquering Mountains would probably be one of those examples where it's like you're thinking about mountain biking, or?
I actually came up with the main, like the intro riff first, without even thinking about it. And I'm like,
okay.
hey, that flows.
And feels like that.
And then I
yeah.
built off of it. So
Okay, cool. And then Pieces of Me, would that be the other style then, where it's like You know, you
just, I didn't know what I was writing about with Pieces of Me. And Pieces of Me was actually, that's why I named it that, because it literally is pieces from over the years. You know, many years that I've had my studio. It's like I record this riff and it's like, hey, this riff's kind of cool. I never used it over the years, you know?
Right.
A year later, maybe I write this other little piece and it's like, doesn't fit in with anything I'm doing, you know? So I kind of took a lot of those pieces and put them together and just named it Pieces of Me.
Nice. I like that. It reminds me of what you were saying about the Without a Word, you know, the album before this, where it was stuff that you had, you know, on that unreleased album a long time ago. So that, I think that's really cool. It's almost like you're coming full circle, you know, like something that you released by yourself, you know.
Right. And that one, I do have to give a little credit to my wife, because years ago, she's like, whatever happened to that instrumental? That was always my favorite stuff.
Yeah.
You know, I do a lot of singing with the band. I've released albums with vocals. But she always liked the instrumental stuff. And
cool.
It really, after she said that, it really kind of rolled around my head a little bit. And I'm like, you know, I dug out, the only copy of it I have is an old warped copy. It's not even clean, you know? So I relearned all the songs off of an old warped copy and re-recorded them. So.
Cool. So a cassette tape then, right? You know?
It was a cassette, but I had tried to remaster it to a CD so it didn't get any worse. But it, you know, all the warp
It's still
came
there.
in with it. So, yep.
Oh, wow. And I'm assuming, so is that how you originally recorded it back in the day? Like on a
It was originally recorded on a Fostex 4-track, and it truly was 4 tracks back then.
Right.
There was one, maybe 2 rhythm guitars, a drum machine,
right,
and a lead guitar. Maybe, nice. And if there wasn't 2 rhythm guitars, there was guitar harmonies.
Oh, yeah, there
leads.
You go. Right,
so there wasn't even a bass on that original album.
Wow, interesting. Do you think that your writing has changed now that you're using we're in the digital world and you're, using a computer as opposed to tape machine?
It honestly, yes, it has changed quite a bit.
Yeah.
Because now I can just loop something, go over and over and get something in my head. And then once I loop it, a rhythm maybe, and write a lead or a melody, then I come back and maybe change that rhythm to fit the melody a little.
Right.
Whereas before, I'd have to pre-think everything.
Yeah.
It's down on tape. It's done. It's,
Right, there it is. Yeah.
So now, I can go back and do a lot of editing and do a lot of pieces.
Right. There you go. And like the last track we played. Cool. Well, let's play some more tunes. This is going to be track 3 off the album. The album's called Speechless. We're talking to Rich Lyga tonight, and here's track 3. It's called Balance, right here on 89.5 KQAL, The Sound. That was Balance. That's off of Speechless. That's the latest album from Rich Lyga. He's the guitarist for Hallowed Ground. You might know him from there. And we have him in the studio tonight. Rich, we were talking a little bit about your recording process, and how things have changed over the years, from going from the Fostex tape machine to the digital world. Do you play, you talked a little bit about playing like live cymbals on the new album, so you use a drum machine, live cymbals, play the bass.
Yeah, years ago, you're probably referring to, years ago I said I used strictly drum machines in that first recording.
Right.
Now I try to mix things up, try to give it a real sound.
Okay.
So I record a lot of it. It's still on programmed drums. But I also come back and I might add some live cymbals in there, some real crashes, some hi-hat, just to give it a more realistic feel. Since, you probably don't all want to hear me actually play the drums. I can keep a beat, I can play, but I'm not the world's greatest drummer, so. But I do, the rest of the instruments are all played. I play keyboards, I play bass, I play guitar.
Cool.
So that's all real instruments.
Nice. How about, and since this is kind of like guitar-centered music, how about your guitar rig? What are you using? What kind of guitar do you play? And
For years, I've been a big Ibanez fan.
Okay.
And back probably around, I'd have to say around 2003, early 2000s. I switched over to playing 7-string.
Oh, okay. Nice.
So I've played pretty much exclusively 7-string guitars since the early 2000s. I do still own a couple of 6-strings. I have an original RG770.
Oh, nice.
Which was the guitar I had my senior picture taken with.
Right, yeah.
I still own that guitar.
Cool.
And I also have an original 87 Ibanez Gem, autographed and numbered by Steve Vai.
Oh, cool.
Who obviously with the guitar music has been a big inspiration to me.
Right.
So, and I actually used those two guitars. I switched back to 6-string for one album.
Oh, really?
That was the Without a Word album that I released last year.
Right.
Not the current one we're talking about, but last year's album, because that was almost a remake of itself. And back then, I played all 6 strings. So,
right. Oh. What was that like then, going back to 6 strings?
It's a little weird, but it's like they say, riding a bike.
Yeah.
I mean, I picked it up and played it, and every once in a while I dust those guitars off and still play them.
Nice.
For something a little different, just to, But yeah, and as far as the rest of it goes, when I perform live, I do have a Marshall TSL series amp, all tube, which I actually don't always use anymore. I've gotten to start using more processed because some of the new simulators and stuff have such a great sound.
Okay.
And when you're recording, all that hiss is gone. It's a lot quieter.
Oh, a lot quieter, yeah.
And in a smaller venue, like even when I'm playing with the band in a smaller venue, you don't have to drag in a big amp. You don't have to, it's very convenient. Now, when I'm playing a big outdoor stage or something, I still take the amps along because it fills up that void.
Yeah. Get the volume in there for sure. What about effects? I hear a lot of wah-wah pedal on it, which I really dig. I recently saw a movie put out by Reverb.com, the Pedal movie, and I absolutely loved it. Saw it up in Rochester at Grey Duck Theater. But do you have a favorite pedal or like a favorite effect, anything like that?
I love a subtle delay and Crybaby.
Okay.
That's really about my go-tos. Very occasionally I'll use a harmonizer, but the harmonies that most of them that you hear are true harmonies recorded with multiple guitar parts.
You actually played them all, yeah.
Other than just a little delay and some Crybaby, wah-wah, that's really my main effects. Other than your distortions and dialing in an EQ and a slight bit of compression. I don't like a lot, but a little bit of compression, a little.
Right. Cool. Well, wow, that's a cool one to for a go-to. I like that.
Thanks, Joe Satriani.
Right? Yeah, for sure, for sure. Speaking of which, let's get to influences also. But before we do that, we'll play another track. We'll come back and we'll talk about influences and stuff like that. We're talking to Rich Lyga. His newest album is called Speechless, instrumental stuff. This next track is called 19 Spiral, and you're listening to it on The Sound on 89.5 KQAL. That was 19 Spiral. That is a track off of Speechless, which is the latest record from Rich Lyga, or album, I should say. Record, I'm kind of dating myself there saying that. But so before we're starting to get into influences. We were talking about your guitar rig and stuff like that, and wah-wah pedal. You know, you mentioned Joe Satriani. How about influences? Who else, what other players kind of influence you?
Years ago, again, dating myself.
Right.
I was always a huge Steve Vai fan.
Yeah.
Steve Vai, Joe Satriani, and there was a very small little niche of guitar players back in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
Guitar Magazine actually recorded or released Guitar Label.
Ooh.
Where they had all these up-and-coming young guitarists.
Right.
Like Greg Howe was one of them.
Okay, nice.
Blues Saraceno. Richie Kotzen.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so a lot of those guys left a mark on me early. Right? As I moved on and started moving through styles that I feel, I started getting really into some heavy music, which to me drives more of my rhythms.
Right.
Probably not the soloing, just more of the rhythms. Malmsteen, really, I don't think he was an influence of mine, but I listened to a lot of them when I was younger, so it kind of, I got that feel, you know, the little neoclassical, there's that little bit, but it's not prominent. But right now, I'd have to say, you know, one of my favorite guitar players is, well, there's so many out there, it's hard to pick one, but I really love what Dream Theater and John Petrucci, the style that they're doing. If I could really sit down and emulate anybody, I think it would probably be that style.
Cool.
But then again, everybody has their own opinions, everybody has their own attitude, and I sit down and what comes out is what comes out. So that really became my style.
Yeah.
And I listen to a lot. I mean, I'm naming all these rock bands, but I've listened to classical over the years. You know, my wife's a big fan of country, so I'm hearing a lot of country getting processed in here.
Right.
I'm hearing, you know, all kinds of music. The only thing, sorry if I disappointed anybody, but I'm not a big rap fan.
Right.
You know,
not a lot of guitars and rap, you know.
Too much rap, too much dance music. That's just not really my thing. But anything else that I listen to really could be considered an influence.
Right. Totally. I think you can hear that too, because it does. You have your own thing going on. You know, like you said, you sit down and play, and whatever comes out. It's you. You know.
Yeah. It's really how I'm inspired and what kind of gets to me at that moment. Like the last song, 19 Spiral. very melodramatic.
Right.
Very acoustic guitar picking in the background, and then you've got a layer of clean electric over it, and then you've got all these like swirling feel almost. And the whole inspiration from that, look at the title, 19 Spiral.
Yeah.
COVID-19. I mean, I'm sick of sitting around. I'm bored. I'm just kind of depressed, kind of,
Right.
So that song really brought out that low mood, as opposed to Conquering Mountains, how we started this whole thing with that upbeat, that swing feel, so again, the feeling really plays into the instrumentals.
Right. Do you think that with the instrumental stuff, do you think you can get even more expressive with the feeling behind the song when there's no actual words to sing,
It really varies. And I think in my personal way I perform and play, I would say yes when it comes to me writing things.
Right.
Because as a lyricist, I'm not 100% confident in the melodies that I put under my vocals. I feel like a lot of times when I do a vocal song, the vocal line is kind of boring. I try to keep the music behind it energy, and that's where I'm really getting into the instrumental stuff on the last 2 albums. Although I do have a single that'll be coming out soon.
Ooh, nice.
With vocals.
Oh, okay, cool. Do you have a release date for that yet? Or?
Not officially.
Okay.
I'm looking at
like summer, or...
mid-June, mid to late June.
Oh, okay, nice.
So it'll be very soon, but
very nice.
No, it's not official yet, and I'm still tying up some loose ends on it. And I'm planning on releasing the original version and possibly an acoustic version.
Oh, nice. Cool. So we'll have a couple new tunes, sort of,
Yeah, it's just going to be a single. It won't be a full album, but it's that next step into my vocal journey.
Oh, okay. Cool. So maybe we'll hear some more vocal tunes in the future?
Yeah.
Right on.
I'm hoping so. I've actually been learning a lot of vocal exercises, learning a lot of things to hopefully strengthen my voice. And we're sitting here talking about an instrumental album, but I'm constantly looking at improving, looking at learning new scales, learning new vocal technique, learning new guitar techniques, learning new instruments.
Right. I think that's key in music. I recently heard Dave Grohl on a podcast. I don't remember which podcast it was, but he said something about he's like, this music thing, like my whole life I've just been trying to figure it out. That's all I'm doing is trying to figure this out.
I heard that too. I heard that same one, and if you stop learning, to me, you almost stop living. You got to always try new things. You always got to try, my family loves to travel. My kids took up mountain biking. I joined right in with them.
Right. And we got a great tune out of it.
Yeah. So to me, it's always about trying new things, trying something different.
Right. Cool. Well, how about, are there other big life things that are inspiration for you, outside of just other music and stuff you listen to?
Honestly, family. I mean, they keep me driving. I've got, 2 teenage boys at this time. I'm married. We're always, again, staying active, doing new things. So that really becomes my inspiration.
Nice. Oh, that's awesome. I love it. We are here talking to Rich Lyga. His latest album is called Speechless. A bunch of instrumental guitar stuff. If you've been listening, cool. If you haven't been, check it out. We've got a couple more tracks to play for you, so stick with us. Rich, so when you sit down to write a song, is it just, we touched on it a little bit with the digital studio stuff, where you can loop something and get an idea in your head. Is that how it always goes down, or do you have like a specific process, like you get the rhythm down, then you do the melody, or is it just whatever comes?
Whatever I'm feeling at the moment.
Okay.
I would say 90% of the time I have to have a drum beat there to build on.
Right.
Because to me, really, it's all about kind of that feeling. Going back to 19 Spiral, there is no drum beat. That just kind of came out of the feeling I was in at the moment. But 90% of the time, I have to have some sort of beat. And a lot of times, I'll just take a simple 4/4 beat, program it in there, write a guitar riff, and then I go back and I change that beat to match the riff.
Cool.
So yeah, the whole digital recording world has really changed the way I progress my music, the way that I write my music. And I think I made this comment before. You put it on tape, it's on tape, and it's there.
Right.
You don't go back and change it.
Yeah, you can't just move it here and there.
It's like slice and dice.
Yeah.
And then a lot of times that's how I come up with the rhythm, but then I try to record the melodies in one take, or as much of a take as I can to really keep the continuity of it going.
Okay.
To keep the flow going, to keep the consistency of the song.
Nice, very nice. Well, let's get back into another track here. We are talking to Rich Lyga, and his new album is called Speechless. Here's another track off of it. This one is called Life Cycles. You're listening to The Sound right here on 89.5 KQAL. That was Life Cycles. That's from Speechless. That's the latest record from, or the latest album, I should say, from Rich Lyga.
There we go with record again.
You know. It always, yeah.
It hasn't been released on vinyl yet, so
right.
Maybe someday.
Do you have physical copies, like CDs or anything? Or?
I have not done physical copies with my last two recordings, albums. When this all started, years ago, 2001, I released an album called Porphyria. That was the name of the band. Window to the Soul was the name of the album. The reason I went with that is because I wanted it to sound like a rock band. I didn't want Rich Lyga. I didn't want, I wanted this band, but I didn't have a band recording. So I released that album. Then I got into the band Unseen. We released an album in 2006, and then Hallowed Ground, as you mentioned, we released an album in 2011. All of that I did all the production, all the recording, everything. I did everything out of my studio for all of these albums. All the way up until the current album, the most recent. But along with that production, I work with a distribution company.
Oh, okay.
So I get the final master made. I get everything done. I send it out to a distribution company. The original album, Porphyria, the reason I brought that up is because I ordered 1,000 copies of that record or CD.
Right. Yeah, there we go.
I ordered 1,000 copies of that and had it digitally distributed. That was back when digital was just getting started, So I paid a pretty penny to have that done, right? So I've made my money back. I've I've still got a couple copies of that left.
Nice.
But then as we progressed with the albums, I didn't spend that much on them. I went more into a digital field.
Right.
Yeah. And now that for a long time, that was the biggest ticket was digital. Now it seems like vinyl's coming back. I've even seen cassettes coming back.
I know. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. Everything's got its cycle that it goes through, I guess.
So.
And for right now, yes, everything is digital. But what happened is I switched distributors. I went to a different distribution company, and I've basically got, it's not a contract, but I've got an agreement with a distributor, and they're not charging me for the distributions that I'm doing for digital.
Okay.
So I would have to pay for the copies, but the distributions are free unless it's a cover tune. Then there's a licensing fee.
Okay.
I pay royalties basically
Right.
to use this tune. So I've got a YouTube channel out there. I've got a website. I've got all this stuff. And the YouTube channel, if you go out there are a couple of cover tunes that I recorded videos for.
Oh, nice.
You talk about inspiration. I've got a cover of a Johnny Cash tune that I did my own way. You know?
Yeah. Folsom Prison, right?
Yep, Folsom Prison Blues. And then
that.
just recently, just before I released this album, I released a version of Johnny Be Good.
Yeah, I saw that too. Very cool.
So all that's out there on YouTube, and you just go to YouTube and look up my name, Rich Lyga, and it's out there.
Nice.
Along with all of the copies of my albums, I formed them into playlists on my YouTube because they're on YouTube Music, they're on Spotify, they're on iTunes, they're on Amazon. So whatever your favorite distributor it is, they're a place where you get your music. It's there.
Cool. Oh, that's excellent. In fact, I think maybe at the end we should play one of those. Play like the Johnny, because that's newer, right? The Johnny B.
It's newer for me. Yeah, it was more of a recent release for me.
Yeah. Okay, well, since we're talking about releases and stuff like that, we've mentioned Hallowed Ground a few times here. Do you guys have any shows coming up with the band with Hallowed Ground?
Actually, we took a lot of time off, as most active musicians did this last year, right? Yeah. There's not a lot of places hiring.
Right.
There's not a lot of concerts going on. There's not a lot of live music, anything going on.
Right.
Last year, take that back, we were supposed to play for Ashley for the Arts.
Oh, wow. Nice.
But because it was canceled, we obviously didn't, and it was kind of in the middle of that whole streak of us not playing. So just recently, we have started practicing again and kind of getting things back together. And we will be performing at Ashley for the Arts this year.
Okay, nice.
We do have a couple of tentative shows, but I'm not going to announce them because I'm not 100% yet. But a couple of town festivals, little things in the area.
Nice.
So
excellent. Ashley for the Arts. That's a cool gig.
Yeah, that should be a fun show. Obviously, there's been a lot of people there and national acts on. You got multiple stages with national acts, local bands, all kinds of entertainment. So
awesome. Oh, that'll be a great time. Cool. So for these like the tentative dates and stuff like that, where can people find out about shows when they're happening? Like when you do finally release the dates and stuff like that.
There's a lot of media out there. Honestly, things with everything that's gone on in the last year, or the nothing that's gone on last year. Yeah. You can go. We have a Facebook page for our band.
Nice.
I have a personal musician Facebook page, so it's Facebook at Rich Lyga.
Because you do solo shows too.
Right, I do solo acoustic shows. Most of that's cover, some original. There, I play with Hallowed Ground, as you mentioned.
Right.
I write and record, which I don't generally perform a lot of that live because I do everything in the studio. It's literally just to get my ideas and my original stuff out there.
Do you ever take the solo stuff and like the instrumental stuff and do it with the band or with Hallowed Ground?
No, we haven't, because a lot of it is really guitar orientated, and a lot of times there are two guitar tracks kind of intertwining.
Oh, okay.
And Hallowed Ground is a 3-piece band,
right?
A bass player, a drummer, and me playing guitar and vocals. So.
Right. Okay. That'd be kind of cool to see sometime.
I have thought about it. Believe me, I've thought about it, just to get my stuff out there a little bit more and performing live. But no, we really haven't pushed that too much because we've kind of leaned a little bit more towards the covers and just kind of, the local scene around here, covers really go over a lot better than the original stuff. So.
Right. Nice. Well, so Facebook is probably one of the better places to
There's
find out
Facebook.
shows,
I've got my personal website, which is richlyga.com, and I also list anytime I'm performing.
Okay.
So
no
if it's with the band, I'll literally put a little byline, Hallowed Ground performing this date, or solo show performing this date. So there's richlyga.com, there's hallowedgroundband.com, which is specifically for the band. We're out there on Facebook. Where else? There's a couple of media outlets that we're on.
Bandcamp or?
I really haven't used Bandcamp, but Reverb Nation.
Okay, Reverb Nation.
I've got both, again, my personal account and the band account on Reverb Nation, if anybody's fans of that. So
yeah. There's so many places to go now for music.
Right, and I try to just keep it simple. I think Facebook is probably the most popular.
Right.
So I made sure something was there. And then Reverb Nation has it can tie into other things. So I just, when I post stuff on there, it kind of goes out. Obviously it's been a little slow the last year, so things haven't been always up to par. But I am definitely, now that we're going to be booking again, I want to make sure everything's up to date there so people can check those sites out, and you'll know when and where I'm playing, when and where the band's playing, when I'm having new releases. But yeah, just follow me on Rich Lyga Music. That's probably the quickest way, because I announce band, solo, everything. Rich Lyga Music on Facebook.
Okay. All right, cool. So Facebook, Rich Lyga Music on Facebook, or I'm assuming Hallowed Ground on Facebook. You would see the Hallowed Ground shows.
Yep.
Great. Well, we've been here talking to Rich Lyga. His latest album is called Speechless. Some killer guitar stuff. If you've been listening, you know that. If not, well, hold on. We got one more track for you. So richlyga.com, as we were saying, Rich Lyga Music on Facebook. Those will have all your shows, right? You know, whether it's with the band and stuff like that.
Right. And it's a little slow right now, but I'm hoping things, once things start clearing up, I mean, things are starting to get back to normal. So hopefully, it'll be back to almost fully back to normal soon, and we'll be doing a little more for shows.
Cool.
Our schedule is looking a little thin right now, but
hopefully it fills up.
I have a feeling that's going to take off pretty soon.
Yeah, probably. All right, well, we got one more track. Layered Funk is what we're going to play for you. That's the last track on the record or album, depending on how old you are, I guess. Rich, thanks so much for joining us tonight. It was a pleasure to talk to you. It's been too long, man.
Yeah,
way
it has.
Too long, so it's good to see you.
Yeah, good seeing you too, and thanks for inviting me down. It's been a pleasure being here.
Right. And I just want to mention, because we do have the Hallowed Ground record on the shelf here in the studio, so anyone out there who's a fan, give us a call and request it. So then this last tune that we're going to play, Layered Funk, can you tell us a little bit about this? Because it sounds like, we were talking a little bit before, and there's a little story behind this, how that came about.
Well, a little bit about how I write, we were talking, and I said sometimes I just literally create a drum loop. And if you listen to this song, as I don't want to call my own music boring, right? But as boring as a drum loop can be, if you listen to this song, that's all it is. I did no additions. I did no fills. I did nothing. It literally is a drum loop. And when I started coming up with the bass line, it was kind of a funky bass line. So hence the name, Layered Funk.
Right.
Just playing this bass line over and over. And I use that bass line literally to kind of dial in my bass tone.
Okay.
Cool. It really is how I dialed in the bass tone for this whole album. The effects that I use on it, getting it dialed in just right. So it was another one of those songs where I dialed in my bass tone. I'm like, hey, this actually sounds kind of cool. So then I layered some pieces on it and layered some more, and I literally just left the drum track a drum loop.
Nice.
It's as simple as it can be.
Oh, I love it. That's awesome. And it does have a cool bass sound too. So it worked for dialing that in. You know?
Yeah, it was a fun record to make. Record.
Right.
There we go again.
We go with the records. All right. Well, here it is. This is Layered Funk from Rich Lyga. This is off of his album Speechless, and you're listening to The Sound on 89.5 KQAL.
Thanks again to Rich Lyga for joining us tonight on The Sound. For more of Rich's music, search Rich Lyga on your favorite streaming service or check out Hallowed Ground on Facebook. For more deep dives into local and regional albums, tune into The Sound every Wednesday night at 6 right here on 89.5 KQAL. I'm Briley Harris, and we've just heard from Rich Lyga on The Sound.
Thanks for listening to The Sound. The Sound is produced by KQAL FM on the campus of Winona State University. Visit us online at kqal.org. Theme music for The Sound provided by Mike Terrell of Fires of Denmark.